Perhaps you're familiar with YouTuber Sargon of Akkad, also known as Carl Benjamin, as well as Count Dankula. Both, I believe both are running for political office. Now, I don't know a lot about Dankula's position, but I know Sargon is like, here we go, right? He just did apparently a press conference where, check this out, check. Here we go. Welcome to the fake news future. Carl Benjamin has refused to apologize for his comments over rape. Yes, because what did Carl Benjamin say to an MEP? I believe it was an MEP. Was it? It was Jess Phelps. I don't know who she is. I'm not from the UK. He said that he wouldn't even rape a female Labour MP and has refused to apologize. Apparently, telling someone you wouldn't commit a crime is also offensive. Now, in response, apparently she said that following his tweet, a bunch of other people tweeted the same thing. Who cares? If someone tweeted at me they wouldn't hit me, I'd be like, thank you. Moving on. But apparently just invoking the concept is offensive. Well, he is not sorry. Look at this photo. Sargon, you silly boy. Carl Benjamin wants to stand to become an MEP of the Southwest for UKIP in the European elections on May 23rd. Members of UKIP's Swindon branch said Benjamin had only joined the local party recently and he should be deselected. At a news conference in London, Mr. Benjamin accused media outlets of smearing him. He said, "I'm not going to apologize for my crimes against political correctness. I hate political correctness." His use of Twitter in 2016 hit the headlines when he responded to Labour MP Jess Phillips' concerns over threats of sexual assault by saying, "I wouldn't even rape you. Feminism is cancer." I believe it was a hashtag. They say the party's Swindon branch chairman, Aubrey Atwater, told the BBC he wanted to see Mr. Benjamin deselected as an MEP candidate. UKIP Swindon wants absolutely nothing to do with Carl Benjamin or his websites. Does he have websites? His appearance is not doing UKIP any favors. Actually, I think that's not true. I mean, maybe you're losing the old guard and gaining new members of UKIP, but Sargon's pretty influential. Combined, his several channels are well over 1 million subscribers. But UKIP leader Gerard Batten rejected the concerns, saying there were people in UKIP that wanted to deselect me. It's called politics. Whoever you select as a candidate, some people are going to object. Some people are going to walk away. That's the nature of the business. Mr. Benjamin accused journalists of being dirty smear merchants, adding, "I'm not answering your questions. I'm not apologizing for anything." Well, where's the exact quote? I have the exact quote. So here's another article. It's from ITV. And I want the exact quote. Here's what he said. In combative exchanges, Mr. Benjamin, who is standing for election in the Southwest region, told journalists, "I'm not answering your questions. I'm not apologizing for anything, you dirty, dirty smear merchants." The press in the UK is particularly bad. It's really bad. Like, you think the US is bad? No way, dude. The UK is really bad. It's really bad. The stuff they write about Count Dankula, like, the dude's a rather centrist guy, and they do everything in their power to frame a narrative to mislead you into believing things that aren't true. It's absolutely the case. Look at this photo. Oh my God. What timeline is this? Okay, let me make a few points. The President of the United States was just exonerated after a 22-month-long investigation into whether or not he was working with the Russians. For years, one of our top cable networks was claiming that Trump may in fact be a puppet of Putin. He's been exonerated because that insane spy thriller of a novel story or accusation was nonsense. But let's not forget, our president here in the U.S. is a shit-posting real estate mogul and reality TV star. It's like all of these weird things just happened at once. Life was normal up until around 2016. Something started happening in 2015. Trump started getting more prominence. No one thought he would win. And then right after he won, I kind of feel like the world is ending. You know, like, is this what's happening? Look at this photo of Carl Benjamin with Count Dankula standing at a podium. It says Mark Meechan left and Carl Benjamin during the launch of UKIP's European Parliament election campaign. This is real life. This is real life where Sargon says, "I'm not apologizing for anything, you dirty, dirty smear merchants." Oh my God. And I'm not done. From Waypoint, Vice's Waypoint, we need to get ready for Gamergate politicians. Carl Sargon of Akkad Benjamin, one of the original voices of Gamergate, is running for a seat in the European Parliament. He's not a fringe voice. He's becoming the mainstream. Welcome to the real world. Content warning. This piece includes racist language and references to rape threats. Yes, references to, because Sargon never actually threatened anybody with, my understanding. Again, I don't know what Sargon said. He got banned for saying some pretty awful things apparently, which I don't really know a lot about. But let's read why Vice is so damn concerned. One of the most prominent anti-feminist voices during Gamergate has turned towards politics, having been named a candidate for the European Parliament representing UKIP, a political party with a bent towards xenophobia, racism, and anti-immigration. It helped push the UK towards its infamous Brexit vote in 2016, which the country continues to wrestle with and has yet to find a real path forward on. Anyone paying attention during Gamergate probably remembers Carl Sargon of Akkad Benjamin. He was one of the many far-right grifters. First of all, I'm going to have to ask you guys to define what the hell that word means, that phrase. Far-right. Explain it. Are you saying he's far-right because he's a traditionalist? Because Sargon actually kind of isn't. He's actually rather moderate in his cultural positions. Are you saying he's far-right because of his economic positions? Actually, he kind of leans left, like centrist towards liberal. So no, that's also incorrect. Grifter. Is that to imply that Sargon doesn't actually believe the things he's saying? Is that to imply that his run for office is just to make money and donations? What do you mean by that? Nothing. It's a smear. They're not actually trying to define or criticize who Sargon is, what or who he is. They're just smearing him. I have tons of criticisms for him and many others, and that's fine. You know, the thing about Sargon is I've criticized him many times in the past. There was this funny moment where on my podcast, I referred to him as kind of a dick and a mean person. And then a bunch of people rushed and like apparently started messaging him saying like, Tim's talking shit about you. And Sargon was like, what? And then he was like, what were you saying? I was like, I said you were mean. And he was like, oh, right on. He was like, oh yeah, I know, I understand. And then, you know, he said, well, you know, I'm just mean to people who deserve it. And I was, you know, Carl invited me to a panel. I was on a panel with him as more of like a centrist on cultural issues. Then there was this guy, I can't remember his name, but he was a progressive, and Sargon, who was more to the, I don't want to say conservative, but as it goes towards like feminism, yeah, he's further to the right, whatever that means. But he made a reference to something about how, you know, you shouldn't, I think Carlos was the guy's name, I think his name was, something about not insulting people. He said we you know, telling someone they're a mansplainer does nothing. It's just meant to get a rise out of you, and it contributes nothing. And then there was something Sargon said about calling someone like a soy boy. And I said, well, Sargon, you refer to someone as a soy boy. Don't you think that's doing the same thing? And Sargon was like, yeah, I guess, you know, I guess. The point is, there's a reason why I have no problem having conversations with someone like Sargon. I'm not going to call him a far-right grifter. That's not true. Sargon actually believes he's not grifting anybody. He's genuine in his passions and what he believes in. But the thing is, when you look at someone like any individual in the intellectual dark web, whatever it is, Brett Weinstein, more progressive, Dave Rubin, kind of in the middle. I don't know how you define him. He's kind of heterodox. Ben Shapiro, someone on the right. You criticize them, and if it's legit, they'll go, hey, that's a good point. Jordan Peterson, best example. In an interview with Jim Jeffries, Jeffries asked him, you know, if you think that businesses shouldn't have to support a gay wedding, what about the civil rights movement? When they said businesses have to, serve the black community. Peterson goes, maybe I was wrong about that. Just like that. It's that simple. I can say something like, Sargon used to make really, really mean content. His content was much more mean-spirited in the past. I think he's done a better job moving forward. He's kind of matured, and he's done some pretty fantastic longer-form content, like a near hour-long piece about what's going on in Venezuela. And I could say to Sargon, I think you were kind of mean, you know, in this comment and in your video, and he'll go, oh, yeah, okay. That's where we are. That's seriously it. So if you're someone who's on the left, right, top, down, whatever, you want to have a conversation and you want to be honest, we can all recognize our faults. We can defend some and say, you know what, I could probably defend that criticism of me, but maybe I'll give you that one, plain and simple. Like, I'm not going to try and defend things I think I'm doing wrong. Long story short, the reason why I have absolutely no problem talking to, doing streams with, conversations, is because in the end, I can simply say something that, you know, if I'm critical of him, we'll have a conversation about it, and it's calm, and that's it. So ultimately, he comes off as a classical liberal type. He loves quoting his classical liberal philosophers and thinkers. And while he says things that are offensive and provocative, you can call him out on it. So one of the funnier things was when I was on the Joe Rogan podcast, They were reading to me what he said. And while doing the podcast, Sargon messaged me saying something like, oh, geez, you're probably like, what the fuck are you doing, man? And it's funny. The reason is Sargon knows he's being provocative. He knows that he said things that are offensive, but ultimately, that's the point of making a joke. It's the point of making the point that you're allowed to say things that rustle somebody's jimmies and make them angry, and that's why he's refusing to apologize to these dirty, dirty smear merchants. Ultimately, what we end up seeing is the fear from the mainstream. It's not even mainstream, these people. It's weird. But Sargon is becoming mainstream. And what does that say to you? When there are more conservatives, according to Hidden Tribes, than progressives, 27% of conservatives on one side and 8% of progressives on the other. It means that calling someone a far-right grifter is only going to go so far for so long, and eventually it just fizzles out when, yes, there is much to criticize someone like Carl Benjamin for, without a doubt. He said a bunch of offensive things. He's associated with very offensive people. But you know what? He's open to the conversation about it, and his principles aren't in line with the worst of the worst. He just recognizes the importance of free speech, and that's it. Ultimately, I care very little about the fact that they're dragging Carl through this. Ultimately, the reason why I wanted to talk about this is that I just can't believe we live in this Wall-E world where you actually have a YouTuber, an anti-feminist YouTuber who's now giving press conferences as a politician. But I'll end with one more point. I demand he be given his Twitter account back. And here's the reason. It's not so much about him as an individual. It's about the fact that we should not allow Twitter to restrict political personalities, politicians and candidates. They should not be restricted from a public forum. If Twitter wants to say their platform is open to everybody, but you got to follow our rules, but also say publicly they allow public figures to say certain things without being removed because of public importance, you've got someone running for office. And I'm going to have to say it. If Sargon does get elected as an MEP, Twitter will have no choice but to verify a profile and let him run it. Period. Trump's broken the rules. Twitter said so. They won't ban him. Well, what are you going to do now? Sargon was banned. But now he's a politician. Sort of. I know he's not going to like me calling him that, but he is. Well, let's see what you got. Are you going to reinstate him? Is it of public importance? It is. Don't you think it's really important people know what someone like Sargon has to say? And if he is a far-right grifter, you let him say it so they can see. And that's the game they play. So we'll see what happens. But it's funny nonetheless. I'll have more videos coming up for you tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out. 10 a.m. I'll see you then.